The perfect tenant. What if the person living in your basement wasn't supposed to be there at all? My name is Sarah, and this happened 6 months ago. I had just bought my first house, a small two-story in a quiet neighborhood. The previous owner mentioned there was an unfinished basement that I could use for storage, but I barely looked at it during the walkthrough. For the first month, everything was perfect. I was finally living alone. No roommates, no shared walls. Then I started noticing my groceries disappearing. Small things at first. Yogurt here, some crackers there. I blamed it on my own forgetfulness. But then I found a plate in my sink that I knew I hadn't used. It had been washed, but not dried, sitting there with water droplets still on it. That's when I started paying closer attention. My electric bill was higher than expected for someone living alone. I could hear the water heater running at odd hours when I wasn't using hot water. And sometimes, late at night, I'd hear what sounded like muffled coughing coming from somewhere below me. I decided to check the basement properly for the first time since moving in. When I opened the door and went down the wooden steps, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Someone had been living down there. There was a mattress in the corner with rumpled blankets. A small camping stove sat on a card table next to stacks of canned food. Food from my own pantry. Empty bottles were lined up against the wall, and clothes hung from a makeshift line between the support beams. But they were still there. In the far corner, behind the water heater, I saw a pair of eyes staring at me from the shadows. A man stepped out slowly. He was maybe 50, thin, wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. He held up his hands and said in a calm voice, "Please don't call the police." He explained that he was the previous owner's brother, that he'd been staying there temporarily and just needed a few more weeks to find somewhere else. He claimed his brother had given him permission before selling the house, but forgot to mention it during the sale. I backed up the stairs, my heart pounding, and told him he needed to leave immediately. He followed me upstairs, still talking in that same calm voice, saying he'd been the perfect tenant, that I'd never even known he was there. That's when I realized he'd been coming upstairs when I wasn't home. He knew my schedule, knew where I kept my spare key. He'd been living in my house for over a month, using my shower, eating my food, watching my routine. I called 911 from my car. When police arrived, the man was gone, but his belongings were still in the basement. They found notebooks filled with details about my daily habits, times I left for work, when I went grocery shopping, even notes about phone conversations he'd overheard through the floor. The previous owner claimed he'd never given anyone permission to stay in the house and had no brother. Property records showed the man had been squatting in foreclosed homes across 3 counties, sometimes for months at a time before being discovered. He was arrested 2 days later at another vacant property. Police found similar notebooks, documenting the lives of other homeowners he'd been secretly living with. What haunts me most is thinking about all those nights I was sleeping upstairs while a stranger was living directly below me, listening to every step I took, learning my patterns, planning who knows what. I sold the house 3 weeks later. I couldn't sleep there, knowing someone had been watching my life so closely without me ever suspecting a thing. Now, I live in a high-security apartment building, but I still check every closet and room when I come home. The worst part? He was right about one thing. He really had been the perfect tenant. If I hadn't gone into that basement, I might never have known he was there at all.